When I first started using Pro Tools as a songwriter, it was very overwhelming and kind of felt like someone had just, I don't know, handed over the controls of a spaceship and said,
"Take me to the moon."
Agent, we're ready for you to take full control. Hold on. Gear up for takeoff. Wait, if you don't take off now, I just got here. You will be stuck in a permanent state of confusion.
Now, I knew Pro Tools had a ton of advanced capabilities that go far beyond just panning, stacking vocals, and hitting record. I also knew that learning to record myself at home would give me the space to really explore my sound and be way more expressive in my creative process without worrying about any limitations or judgments from somebody else in the room. Today, we're gonna be discussing how to create a session, plus I'm gonna walk through the layout of Pro Tools and some of the more important tools that will apply to you as a songwriter and help you kind of breeze through your sessions a little bit easier. Something I want to talk about before we get started creating sessions and stuff like that inside of Pro Tools is file storage. This is one of the most important things you need to think about before recording, which is where you're gonna be storing all these heavy duty files. And something that has never failed me is an external SSD drive. If you've watched my channel before, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before. My favorite are these little Samsung SSD drives. I will link them below. This is an actual old one. I think this is only like 500 gigabytes. The reason I've been able to get away with using something so small like 500 gigabytes is I don't leave all of my sessions stored on one hard drive indefinitely. I have been transferring them over to cloud storage like Dropbox and Google Drive. It allows me to keep recycling space and not having to buy a bunch of SSD drives. Eventually, I'm sure I will get something gigantic that I can kind of have like a hard copy somewhere, but as of right now, I've been doing just fine with everything in the cloud and I'm okay with that. Usually I check in yearly and I'll think about, okay, like what sessions have I not opened in a long time? What sessions will I probably never open again, but I don't want to get rid of the files, or maybe it belongs to a client, I just want to have it. So yeah, those are the type of things I would move over to Dropbox. If you guys want to do a video on file organization and stuff like that, we can. I do have a system that I've kind of created with Notion, but that was something I wanted to talk about first, is make sure you have something that's fast that you can work on, because I not only store my files on this, but I'm working off of this hard drive. I'm not working off of my computer's hard drive. I'm working off of the Samsung SSD. It's really fast. And also I am really hard on my hard drives. And this one doesn't have any moving pieces inside of it that I know of. Because you know how on older hard drives or just other hard drives, you can hear like all of the functionality happening on the inside. So if you drop it, you just kind of like demolish everything you needed to make it work, and you might even lose your files. So I really like that it's way less likely for you to drop it and have damaged everything. And this is coming from someone who has dropped them several times. Okay, so after you have opened Pro Tools, this is the screen that you're going to get. If you are new to Pro Tools and this is literally your first time opening it, it's obviously going to look a little different, but ultimately you will always usually land on a screen that looks something like this. There are 4 tabs here on this left-hand side. Getting started is obviously going to be great for you because you are just getting started. So I definitely think it's cool to explore this. Sometimes if I'm bored, I do venture over here just to see if there's something else that I could learn. And they do have their own little templates down here that you can start with so that you're not starting from ground zero. But projects tab, I've never used it. I don't think I'll ever will use it. It's just not something that applies to me, but I don't even think my subscription allows me to do this. Create is self-explanatory. This is where you're gonna go when you wanna create a brand new session that is for a new song. And then the recent tab, once you've started working on a bunch of music, all of the sessions that are most recent will populate here so you can choose from them. So let's give our new session a quick little title. I'm just gonna call it YouTube Walkthrough. The first question is local storage, or basically cloud storage, and their cloud storage is not really talking about Dropbox or Google Drive. It's more so referred to Pro Tools cloud storage, which I don't use. I will be using the local storage, you know, working on that hard drive that we already discussed. And then there's a checkbox here that's saying create your new session from a template. And like I said, they have their own templates that they've created that you can try out for yourself and see if they work for you. I've worked with someone to create a custom template for myself, and that is my end all be all that I use for everything. Today, we're not going to create from a template because I want to go over everything with you. So next, we're going to move to this bottom half of the startup window. First, it's asking you for your file type. It's pretty standard just to use .wav, but if for some reason you need or prefer AIFF, that's what you can go. .wav is usually what I stick with. Okay, so next we're going to come down to bit depth and sample rate. I usually stick to 24-bit, but it's okay to do 16-bit as well. It'll still sound just as good. You just get a little bit more detail in the picture when you go a little higher. 32-bit is something that I feel like unless you're, you know, recording like an orchestra or something that requires intense audio detail, it's not really necessary. For streaming and all the things that a typical person will do, 16 to 24 is perfectly fine. And same thing with sample rate. In my experience, no one has requested that I record higher than 48 kilohertz. Honestly, I typically stay at 44.1 unless somebody asks me to do 48 kilohertz, just because my computer is older and I don't want to push it too far, because obviously the higher you go in these numbers, the more storage space you will be consuming. So, you know, you don't want to push it too hard. Okay, so lastly, input output settings, I/O. You're gonna click the option that applies to you. For me, I'm just gonna use last used, and you can select your interface and all the things that apply to your setup in this area. Moving down to the final question area, it says prompt for location. I like to be prompted because sometimes I have things stored in different locations and I just want to be sure that it's exactly where I want it to be. So I prefer to leave it at prompt for location. Open from disk. This is something that I use sometimes if maybe the recent session tab isn't showing you the sessions you want to see, or it's something from like a really long time ago. Open from disk is going to be very useful to you. So now that we've kind of gone over what is happening on the startup screen, let's create our session. And as you see, it's showing me my Finder window. Let me pick where I want it to go and save. Here we are. This is what your Pro Tools sessions will look like. If you're not working from a template, there's no tracks or anything exciting happening right now. So before we start creating tracks and recording vocals, let me give you the lay of the land and what all of these things mean on the screen. So starting from left to right, we have our edit modes, zoom, edit tools, counter, grid/nudge thingy, transport, MIDI controls, quantize, and this whole bar just makes up your toolbar. Okay, so it's a new day, it's a new angle for me. I was running out of time last night, so I decided to come back with a fresh mind and continue down this Pro Tools journey with you. So let's get back into it. So first I'm gonna go over here to File, Import, Audio, and let me find my files in Dropbox. So I'm gonna use this one, it's called Out of Reach, and I'm just gonna click Copy. So usually when it's a .wav, the option to copy will pop up, and that just usually means that it doesn't really matter where the song is, it's copying its own version into your session, and it doesn't matter if you like delete the song, it's still gonna exist in your session. But sometimes if you're using a .mp3, the option changes from copy to convert. But convert is essentially going to do the same thing that copy will do in so many words. So as you see, we click copy, it moved it over here to the section that says clips to import. Everything else looks good, so I'm just going to click open. I'm going to leave this alone in the folder that it naturally lands in, which is the audio files folder. And I'm going to say add it to a new track. And bam, we have imported our track into Pro Tools. And luckily the producer, Dream Life, has already added the BPM in for us. So we're gonna come right up over here into our little MIDI control section. We're gonna double click on this number and type in 130, and that is how you can change the BPM. You can also move it up and down by clicking on it and, you know, moving your mouse up and down. So we now have our BPM set, we have our track in. I normally turn it down a little bit because I like to be able to hear myself when I'm singing and, you know, recording and stuff like that. I usually start by hitting like -6 or 7-ish. From there, when I, you know, turn my mic on and I start testing 1 2 3ing, I can, you know, adjust from there. Something I wanted to show you before we get too far into the session is to turn on your autosave by clicking up in the top left-hand corner, clicking Pro Tools, scrolling down to Preferences. Then you're gonna, if you're not already on the screen, you're gonna slide over to the tab that says Operation. Under Operation, you're gonna go down to the Auto Backup area and enable Session File Auto Backup. And from here, you can adjust it to how you wanna adjust it. I have mine set to every 5 minutes. This comes in handy because sometimes your computer and Pro Tools may not play nice, or a plugin may not play nice, and your whole entire system might just shut down.
Shutting down.
Out of nowhere. It is the worst thing, especially if you've recorded a bunch of vocals and you come back to find out that the vocals you just did were deleted. So not only am I constantly Command S on my own when I think about it, usually I record something and I Command save. Record something, Command save. Or Command S, I'm sorry when I'm saying save. Command S as much as possible. Trust me, you do not want your session to just quit out of nowhere. Anyways, this keep blank most recent session backups is up to you as well. Mine is set at 10, and that has been great for me because usually if my computer or Pro Tools just shuts down out of nowhere, I don't need to go back like 10 sessions. It's normally just like 1 or 2 sessions I need to go back in time if I have to. There has been times in the past for clients where maybe I've had to go into a session backup because some changes I made that maybe I deleted, which is rare. So that's up to you and the way that you work. You also might want to just click around in this area and see if there's anything you may want to change, you know, because some of it literally is just how the program is going to operate based on your literal preferences. So now that we've gone through the layout of the toolbar and imported our first track and set the BPM, the next logical thing would be to create some tracks and start organizing our session so that we can potentially save our first template.
Check it out.
So to create a track, all we're gonna need to do is go up to Track, New, and you get this little menu of things to choose from. How many tracks do you wanna create? For now, let's say 6. Whether this is gonna be how you're recording, I'm gonna be recording in mono. And then you're gonna select what kind of track are you creating. In this scenario, we're just creating a basic audio track. I'm gonna leave this in samples, and then we're gonna name the tracks. Actually, we're not gonna name the tracks. Let's just leave it as it was because we're creating 6 at once right now. So here we go, we have 6 brand new tracks, all named audio 1 through 6. I like to organize my session by the way I write music. So usually I start with a few different lead tracks. I create some tracks for my background vocals and also my doubles. And sometimes I even create different tracks for ad-libs and where I want to record the hook. So let's rename these and start building out our structure. All you have to do to rename a track is right click it, scroll down to, where did it go? Scroll down to rename and insert in the kind of name you want to give it. I think I'm going to turn this track into our record track. Press OK. I also like record to be red because that just makes the most sense to me. We're gonna scroll this up a little higher, and I like to change the colors of everything. All you have to do to change the colors is double click right in this little blue area off on the left side where there's just kind of like open space. Select both lead tracks because I want them to be the same color, and let's give them like something different, some kind of cool color vibes. Then we're gonna go down to the background vocals, double click those and change them into something else. And then we've got our ad lib down here. We're gonna, oops, I clicked on the wrong spot. We're gonna double click this track color area and we're gonna change ad lib to, sometimes I do ad libs yellow, and I like the ad lib to be near the leads because to me, they are still a form of leads. I like my backgrounds to be panned a specific type of way. So as you see, if you come over into this area, it's gonna let you adjust the volume, the panning, and if you pressed Command in the volume area and keep clicking, it allows you to change and affect other things that could be going on. This is peak and delay and volume. So my backgrounds, I like to turn the volume down a little bit on them. So let's put both of these at 5.9 and let's pan one over to like 84 and the other side over to the right at about 84. I don't like everything to be hard panned 100 and 100. If you want to dive deeper into all that kind of stuff, we can. Now we've got some kind of file organization going on. I do want to add some more tracks to this. I'm going to click on lead 2 and then I'm going to press command and click on lead 1. Right click on the word lead and I'm going to duplicate them because I actually want 4 lead tracks. I make a lot of vocals, so I just like to have the space for what I may or may not need. Now, when you do duplicate, this box comes up, data to duplicate, and you can choose like what things from this track you want it to copy. And I don't really want it to copy any playlist or any automation. Usually if I'm doing automation, I just want it applied to the one track. If you don't know what automation is, it's pretty much when you take something from a plugin or the volume level and in a specific area you're telling the system that you want this to happen in a specific way, and you know, you can edit the controls to do what you want to do at this specific point, or you want, you know, magical things to happen at a specific point in time. You can automate it, and that feels like a very long and drawn out way to explain it. Hopefully I didn't just give you a headache, but we could do a whole video on automations because there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done with it. I'm gonna uncheck active playlist, alternate playlist, and automation. Usually I leave on insert sends, markers, group assignments, because these are things that don't bother me so much and I don't mind them being the same. Usually that would mean if there's a track that has a specific plugin on it, you want it to keep all of those same plugins and whatnot, that's what it will do. We're going to click OK. I also forgot to mention this check mark down here, insert after last selected track. So it's going to come in right here, right after lead 2, and that's where we want it to be. Perfect. So now we have 4 lead tracks. I'm going to double click on the word lead.dupe1 and I'm going to replace the name and call this lead 3. Click next. Ooh, my head itches. Click next and I'm going to call this lead 4. I think for now 1 ad-lib track is fine. This is not enough background tracks for me, so I am going to do not double click. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate. And my setup is already here, and this is telling me it's going to duplicate once my set of 2, and I think I want 2, 4, 6, 8 maybe. So let's duplicate this 4 times. There we go. This is starting to look like a session I can get down with. Perfect. Okay, so now we have something. You will notice that all the panning is exactly the same. Eventually I will edit this volume levels and panning because on my background vocals, I just like things to have different levels. I just think that would emulate reality a little more. If this were a choir and the choir was doing all the background vocals, like everybody's not going to be singing at the same exact volume and everyone's not standing in the same exact angle and direction, so vocals are going to be coming at you from all kinds of different places. So I will edit the pan and volume differently, and you know, some might be louder than others, some might be less panned than others. This one can come all the way down to like 68. You get the gist. You can have a field day with how you do this. I'm still missing a couple of tracks that I would like to have in my session, so I'm gonna go ahead and add those and come right back. The next thing I want to do is create auxiliary input tracks. This is a little bit of an advanced concept, so I'm not going to go too far into auxiliary tracks and what they are, but I'm essentially rebuilding my current template that was created by a talented audio engineer, so it does have some more advanced aspects to it, but I do think that if you're going to be recording yourself at home, you should wrap your head around some of these concepts, so we will just touch on it today. A simple way to think of auxiliary inputs and busing is essentially just allowing you to group a particular type of vocal together and process and treat them together, but also separate from everything else. So for example, if we want to have all of our leads on a bus, all of the doubles on a bus, all of the backgrounds on a bus, but I want my leads to be filtered and sound like I'm talking on the telephone, then I can add a telephone effect to the lead bus, and all of the lead vocals will sound like they're coming through a telephone, but none of the other vocals that are being bussed and routed to different channels will be affected. So let's start out by creating an auxiliary input for our lead vocals. So all you're gonna do is go back up to that track menu that we used earlier, click new, and we're gonna use stereo, and we're gonna say auxiliary input. We're gonna leave it at samples, and I'm just gonna call this the lead bus. Create. So now you see we have a different looking kind of track. It doesn't have this open air situation where you can record into it. It also doesn't even have the record button available for you to access. So this is definitely a different kind of situation. It also says there's no input, so we need to give it one. All you need to do is click no input, and then you're gonna go down to bus. And you can pick any bus that you see fit, and that makes your heart pitter patter. I usually just go with whatever I see first, and I'm gonna just click bus 31 and 32. And then I'm gonna right click and rename that bus just so that I'm not confused. And let's maybe do it in all caps, and let's say leads. So now we have this bus that has been created from the input, and it's outputting to mono left and right. So that's just like our main, speaker situation. And you'll see that our lead vocals up here are also coming out of mono left and right. And we want them to be going to our bus. That means that the vocals will be running through a cable that's plugged into this bus. And this bus will soon have our plugins and things that we want to use. This is also a great way to save some computer capacity, because you're not going to be repeating the same plugins on every single track that can, kind of take up a lot of processing power. So that allows you to just kind of save some of that CPU and be a little more efficient by adding it all to a bus and routing all the vocals to that bus so that you can only have one occurrence of the plugin. So how do we get the vocals to come out of this lead bus? We need to come to the output. So the input is going to be our microphone. In order to get the vocals, we need to input our vocals into the mic. So we need to leave that alone. But output is, you see if I hover over it, this is called the audio output path selector. We're going to click that, and we are going to scroll down to bus, and we're gonna click the bus that we just selected. And if you remember, I renamed it to leads. So we're just gonna click leads. And we're gonna repeat that process on all of our lead vocals, because we want all of our lead vocals to be coming out of our auxiliary input or our bus. So there you go. And so now if you wanna come down to the lead bus and add, let's go to Avid and use some stock plugins. Let's say you want to add an EQ. Let's just put like a basic EQ on there. And I think the best way to start, if you have no idea what you're doing, is to just go right into their presets. So let's see, we've got our vocal presets, and let's just say solidify female vocals, because that's who I am and what I do. And then we can go back to Avid. Let's add a compressor. Let's put this Pro compressor on there. That sounds good. Let's see what kind of presets we have. We've got vocal. Let's say lead vocal. That sounds perfect to me. And for now, let's just leave this very basic so things don't get confused, but we can start to build out a a standard template or bus that uses only the stock plugins, in case you don't have any third-party plugins yet. Yeah, so I think this is looking good and we have the makings for a strong template. I'm gonna repeat this situation through all of the remaining tracks. So I would like to have a bus for my doubles, a bus for my background vocals, and a bus for my hook. Honestly, I usually bus the ad-libs over to my lead vocals because to me they are like a lead and I can just add plugins directly onto the track if I feel like I want to do something fancy to them, but I think that they are fine just being bussed over to the leads. Let's see what else I have here. Yeah, I'm gonna take a second to create buses for the rest of these tracks. Also, I'm gonna change this lead bus color to match the lead vocals, or at least be like one color off. Sometimes I make it like, oops, I make it one color darker. Okay, so now that we have our session looking good and almost functional, you will see that on the lead bus and pretty much all the other buses, I did add a quick de-esser. This is Avid's built-in de-esser. I just went to the settings and I set it to female DS. I haven't recorded in this yet, so I don't know really how it sounds, but I just figured why don't we just keep it easy and start with all of the presets and some stock plugins. So if we move over to this left-hand side, you'll see it says tracks, and it's kind of like a little map of our session that we have going on. The reason I'm showing you this is because I wanted to come down to the bottom into this group section. This is one of my favorite things to do. Why? I don't know. It's not that exciting, but yeah, so let's group all these vocals so that we can control them together if we want to. So I'm gonna click lead up here and I'm gonna click lead 4 down here. Then I'm gonna go to my keyboard and press Command G. And now you'll see it's asking us, do we wanna group these vocals? Which yes, we do. I'm gonna call them leads. And you'll see right here, currently in the group is lead 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you want to add anything else over here, you can by clicking over into this available section, but this is all we want. So let's click OK. And now you'll see down here in the group area, it says leads. So this is helpful if like you have multiple things playing at once and perhaps you want to solo all of the lead vocals. Now, whatever I do on one track that is a lead will happen to the others. And once you deselect leads, you can continue to operate them alone again. So this is just something I find that when you're editing vocals is super helpful. So let's go through this and just group all of the things that need to be grouped. I also like to group instrumental stems. Sometimes producers send me individual stems of all of the instruments on a track, and I like to group the drums, the guitars, the synths, the bass, because maybe one thing is too loud or the whole group is too quiet. Now we're coming down to the background vocals and we're going to group all of these. Because also, as you've seen, there is a lot of background vocals, and sometimes just turning the volume down on like 1 and then having to go all the way down the line is just far too much. So that is another quick little feature that I wanted to share with you that I think will help you during your workflow. Okay, and so one other thing I wanted to show you before we start to wrap it up is the mix window. You can access it a couple of different ways. One, you can go up to the Windows tab or menu in the toolbar and literally click mix, and that's going to bring you to this screen, and this is kind of emulating what you would see in a studio with all of the knobs and things on the mixing boards. And sometimes it's fun to use this, and I have to be honest, I don't use it that often. It's very, very rare. I just find myself doing everything in the edit window, but a lot of engineers and producers I work with switch back and forth to the screen, but it's just something that I don't go too hard in mixing. I get it to the point where if a client needs it or if it's going to be used on television, it is perfect for that. And so yeah, it's not something I use all the time, but if you want to access it, you can get to it by the window screen, and you can also get to it by connecting by tapping command and the equal sign, and that will let you go back and forth between each screen. Command and equals, at least if you're on Mac. I believe if you're on Windows, it's going to be Control equals. So yeah, that is a fun fact for you. If you've been following along in your own Pro Tools session, now would be a good time to explore and customize your template even more. And once you get into a final stopping place, you can officially save that template so that the next time you're ready to open up Pro Tools and start recording music, your template's already ready to go and you're not starting from ground zero, and you don't have to spend 30 minutes building up your session with tracks and like all kinds of things like that. At one point in my life, I literally used to do that. I would open every session and it would be blank, and I would like create tracks as I go. And I just think, especially when you start doing this on a professional level, like any time saved is a miracle. I just love that for us. So here we go. Let's go to File, and we're going to Save as Template. It's literally so easy. And so right here in this category section, you can see it says Getting Started. That's just where I saved it. I'm not sure where like you can create your own category. Maybe that's probably the most productive thing to do. Let's click that, and we're just gonna say Custom Templates. How about that? Cute. And we can name this, let's name this Stock Plugin Template. And you can, let's just install that template into the system. So here we go. We're gonna click OK. And the next time we log into Pro Tools, it's gonna prompt us with that startup box that we saw at the beginning of the video. And now our custom template will be in there, and we can edit it at any time and add new elements that we may think would help speed up our workflow even more. I'm constantly adding new things and new tracks. There is so much. We haven't even scratched the surface in Pro Tools. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this at least gives you a good starting point in your Pro Tools journey. Now I think I can say that I feel happy with, ending this video here. In the next video, we can start recording and doing all kinds of fun things together in Pro Tools.